Welcome back to the And Both podcast. This episode is one of the monthly Roundtable series that Erin Holland and I do, where we co-host two women we've either had on our shows, both our shows, one of our shows, and bring them together to have a deeper dive into a topic or area that we've discussed previously. So in this episode, we are sitting down with Abby Wakehoff and Katie Huey. They're two women who have turned profound loss into a space for connection, for meaning, for community. They have both been on And Both before, and Abby actually is the long-term title holder for most listened to episode in all of the 100 episodes of the show so far. And it's easy to see why, because there's a real need for space for people that are going through not just the pretty social media side of life. And she is incredibly generous with her platform and with her messaging in order to create a space for people to hear about her story with her sister, but also a space for people to be able to identify with somebody else who is going through that. Katie also shared in the episode that she and I recorded together the experience of losing her dad unexpectedly, how her grief has evolved over the last decade, and how it led to her new book, which is newly released, called Grief, Cookies, and Other Comforting Things. It is an invitation to grieve differently. And in this episode, we talk about, sort of all the sides of the coin, not necessarily just both. It's a really important thing that we don't spend a lot of time talking about grief in general, but grief and its impact on the other parts of our lives and the other roles that we play. And so these two are just absolutely amazing. And they have such, not different, but such complementary views on the grief process and what that looks like for people and having different experiences, but being able to come together. So without further ado, here is the Roundtable for October. Welcome to And Both, a podcast about what it really looks like to put yourself on the list while raising kids and doing all the other things life asks of you. I'm your host, Ashley Blackington, and on this show, you'll hear conversations with moms who are figuring it out in their own ways, plus a few solo episodes from me from time to time. It's not about having all the answers, it's about sharing stories, learning from each other, and knowing we don't have to choose between either or when we're living in the middle of And Both. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to, I guess we're calling this the Roundtable. We've never actually named this thing.
We haven't, no.
Erin and I are here with Katie Huey and Abby Wakehoff, and I have met you both before. Erin has not. So I'm going to pass the baton over to you guys. Both of you have been on And Both. Why don't you introduce yourselves a little bit, and then we'll kind of kick it off from there.
Yeah, sure.
And welcome.
I can go first. Thank you. I'm Abby. And it's Wakehoff, which is neither here nor there. Everyone kind of chooses their own route with it. But me and Ashley met through a mutual friend because Ashley heard that I was going through some grief at a similar time that Ashley was going through it. It's now been a little over 3 years, but my sister passed away after a relatively short, about 16 months, bout with cancer. She was just 43 and truly my person in the world, like my best friend. So in the midst of all that, we had like the pandemic happening. I had 2 really little kids, existential dread about, am I in the right career? And all that was going on like all at the same time. So I've really kind of had to like hold a lot at the same time as like dealing with this, first the anticipatory grief of losing my sister and then ultimately her passing, and how that has completely transformed my life in a lot of ways and how I show up every day.
Yeah. Thanks, Abby. Thanks for sharing a bit of your story. I'm Katie Huey. I'm a coach, a writer, and a facilitator, and I too have a grief story. Mine is a little bit different. And then in 2016, I lost my dad unexpectedly when I was 27. So I kind of had I don't know. I don't know if it was opposite. I want to be cautious of comparing right off the bat, but I didn't get that goodbye experience. And so I've spent the last 8 years trying to kind of make sense of that experience and make some meaning out of it. And today actually is pub day for my book called Grief, Cookies, and Other Comforting Things, Finding Beauty in Life After Loss. So I can relate to that topsy-turvy feeling of figuring out what do I do now. In 2016, I lost my dad in March. My husband lost his job in April, and I lost my job in May. So it was very much a fall apart year. And it took a long time for us to get our legs underneath us. But through that process, I really started to realize how illiterate our culture here in America is. People are so afraid to talk about grief. It's not contagious. And I think what I've really been passionate about is how do we help people find words for the things nobody likes to talk about? How do we show up for one another when it's hard, especially when it's hard? And I think over the last 5 years, so many of us have been going through kind of chronically hard things. So I'm really adamant about seeking joy, not at the expense of like toxic positivity, but how do we hold both? And how do we create spaces for people to say like, this sucks? So that's something I'm really interested in.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks for introducing yourselves. And I think both of you guys just touched upon so many things that I've experienced actually currently holding space for grief, as well as like the last 10 years. And I think the idea of holding both, like the grief and trying to seek joy, like that tension is so rough. And I don't feel like there's words for that. Like, how do you articulate, like, this sucks, like I'm suffocating, I'm trying to preserve, like as moms, right? Like the weight of the world can be on your shoulders, but you're like, oh, I still have to feed my 2-year-old. I should probably go take a shower. And it's like, how do you persevere in those moments and still try to hang on to that hope, which just feels like you're in a hopeless situation? Let's just jump on into heavy stuff.
Let's go.
It's going to be a bunch of fun.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think, I don't think grief is fun. 0 to 10, do not recommend. However, it's a necessary function of life. And I think that the thing that I love about both of you and how you talk about this is that you don't shy away from the fact that it's terrible.
Mm-hmm,
and I think that's that toxic positivity piece where people are like, well, let's just like spa day the grief away and let's just like turn the page. And it's like, you guys both hold a ton of space for the value of the page itself. And I think that's a piece that is, our world moves so fast, right? Like it's not even that today's newspaper is tomorrow's like trash can liner. It's like we don't even print the paper anymore.
Right.
It's just everything just kind of rolls on and rolls on and rolls on. But yet there are these moments in time. And Abby, when you and I talked, I remember you sharing the story of like, after your sister had passed and you were in New York and you got in a cab and you were like going across a bridge or something and like the world is still going, right? Like the world is still humming along and you're like, I feel like I have been cemented into the ground and yet everything else is still going on around me. And like that, I just think that that's not something that we can like, I don't know. We can't turn the page. We can't even close the book. We just have to like stop and sit in the suck of it. But we're not good at that.
In a way, it doesn't like really go away. Like that moment is certainly appeared in my mind. Like my sister had been in the hospital for a few days and I said goodbye to her. And then I just got on an elevator and went over the Brooklyn Bridge and it was this beautiful night. And I feel like part of that essence of still like looking through the fishbowl, like y'all are still just like doing life like normal, is still kind of here 3 years later. Like it's still like my life and how I like view everything is forever changed.
Yeah, it's a crazy kind of turn of events. Like I had my own experience, and I've shared this before. My father died 3 years ago now. I think it's 3 years ago. He died at the beginning of December by suicide. And it was a Monday, I got a phone call, and Wednesday we had to go to the hotel that in town to go like meet Santa. And I couldn't even like, I couldn't even like wrap my head around the words to explain to my kids what had happened because they were so little. And I remember being there and, there's kids who are like, I want more frosting. And like, all of this stuff. And it's just like, you're standing still and the whole room is swirling around you. And they had no idea. And I was like, I just don't want it to be a part of this. Like, where do I drop this bomb ever so gingerly into their life? But that's the motherhood piece, right? Is like you have all of these things, but yet your output is supposed to be rainbows and sunshine and stuff. And then you have this thing that just like clogs the chute and you're like, okay, well, we're kind of screwed here. But it's hard. I think it's just managing all those different components over and over again and then being told how we're supposed to manage that.
Yeah. Or pretending it doesn't exist, I think is what ultimately we're saying too. Right.
And having a timeline on it too, like Katie, you said it's been since 2016. I think, a lot of people is like, oh, that's a long time ago. You must be completely over it. And that it is not true. Like the longer it goes on, this like absence, sometimes the harder it is. So I feel like we kind of get this like this portion of time that it's like okay to be like in your feels, but then everyone just kind of needs you to like get it together, at a certain point. And that's, and you do get it together, but like those feelings of like the day that these things happen still come up and they feel just the same as they did 8 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever.
And I think I remember very vividly sitting at like a grief support group and someone sitting across the table said, "This is never going to go away, is it?" And I just like that pit in my stomach of like, oh, shoot, or other choice words. This is never going to go away. And I think now, I'm almost, in March, it'll be 10 years, which I can't believe.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have children when my dad died. I now have a 3-year-old and one on the way. And I think the conversations are different. How do you introduce someone they never got to meet? How do you carry them forward? And even this morning, I turned on the radio and I was like, okay, Dad, like we just launched a book about me losing you. Like, where are you? And I was waiting for the music to come on that sometimes I hear him play and it didn't. And I think, and that doesn't mean he's not here today in different ways, but I think with the passage of time, there's different expectations and like the weight of it changes and it shrinks and it grows, but it's very much still present. And I'm reflecting like, what was it like in year 3 for me? I think, year 1, there's a lot of people that show up. I thought year 2 was really hard because it's still real and you had to do all of the milestones again. And then year 3, it was like, okay, how do I stand up and keep going? So I don't know, year 9, it's easier, but I still very much miss him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hate to even say easier. It's different. People want you to say it's easier.
Yeah, they want that light.
Mm-hmm. We want things to be easy, that quick fix.
Yeah, the pain of absence, of someone's absence, it will not go away. I will be a little 80-year-old woman, wondering where the hell my sister is. Like we were supposed to grow old together, like it will still feel as painful as it does today because that person's supposed to be there with you, that doesn't go away just because time keeps traveling on.
Yeah. Have you guys, I feel like people like to say, because I think going back to what we said earlier, like there usually aren't words and people don't know how to hold this space for us. And I think what I've heard a lot is like time heals. And clearly it doesn't, right? Like it ebbs and flows and it contracts and then expands again. And it's like, are there any words that you can provide to yourself for some sort of relief or to others of like how to manage the grief differently? Or is it just like it looks different for everyone?
I think being really graceful with yourself. Some days grief has to, like in the beginning, especially like days of, just not really getting out of bed, throwing frozen pizza at my kids and like doing the best I could. Right. And some days I was able to and so I think like grace, just, being slowing down, letting yourself be where you are each day and knowing that it's going to change. Like you can be in the real like dark thick of it. Like, oh, I'm never going to get out of this. But if you always know, and it's always been a motto to me, I think it is to a lot of people, like this too shall pass, not grief in general, but this moment that you're in, like, oh, I haven't thought about my sister in a few days. Like that is weird. Like, but that's also going to pass. I'm going to fall back into this like deep sadness at some point, and that also will pass. So just, knowing that everything is cyclical, things come around, and being soft and gentle with yourself when you need a little more space.
Yeah, I so agree with the gentleness. I get kind of passionate when people say there are no words. I just think it's a lazy cop-out. Even you said it, Erin, like, this sucks. That's 2 words that really make a difference. And that's way better than saying nothing. And even the phrase, like, I don't know what to say right now, but I'm here with you. Like, that is so much better than a quiet stare. And, I lead writing workshops to help people find their own words, but it's like, start with one word. Like, what are you feeling, thinking, seeing, sensing today that's related to your grief or how someone else might be experiencing? So I guess I can go back and forth about, are you offering comfort to someone else or are you trying to offer comfort to yourself? But again, I think my coping was really looking for the beautiful things amidst the pain. And it started really small. It's like, oh, look at this little jar of candy corn that's sitting, whether or not you like candy corn. Maybe gumballs are more not politically, generally accepted. Anyway.
It could be political these days.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. Hopefully gumballs are neutral. But, the juice of a peach, the steam on my cup of coffee, like little gratitudes that I just started taking for granted. And I think my advice to people who especially are in, that the immediate loss is find comfort. Where is a blanket that soothes you? Get that extra can of Diet Coke. Like, hooray, you brushed your hair today. I think it goes back to so many of those basics. So I think there's also just a lot of responsibility that we have to take for ourselves of saying, like, this is super uncomfortable for me and I'm going to try to show up anyway. I've had a few friends who have had miscarriages this year. And even though I coach people on, finding how to talk about grief, I still felt very tongue-tied. It's like, I'm not sure how to support you right now, but I just want you to know I'm here. And I hope that's better than like fumbling. So, and I think it's okay to say too, like, I'm going to screw up. I'm probably going to say something stupid because you don't know how you can offend everyone. And that's just exhausting. And, I guess, again, the setting is important. Are you a coworker? Are you a manager? Are you a friend?
I think one of the things that I think is really interesting and when in my own experience and how to translate that down to the kids is like, you can't outrun it. Like you can't outwork grief. You can't literally run whatever it is you're doing to try and avoid it. It's waiting there for you. And that the idea that we can just stay busy, that we can just keep moving and one foot in front of the other, which is in complete opposition to motherhood, right? Because we have to keep pushing forward and keep doing all of these things despite all of this, but also accepting the fact that like this tidal wave of terrible feeling is going to hit you, and you can either like brace yourself and do the things you need to do, like find the comfort, or you can get completely swept off your feet and like rolled around in the suck of it. I think that for me was one of those things. It was like right now, like what you were saying, Abby, like right now it feels terrible. And I'm gonna like find the things that bring comfort and all of those pieces. But I know that it's not gonna feel this terrible all the time. However, in this moment, it feels like it's gonna be terrible forever. And giving yourself the space for that.
And I think in that space is such an invitation for bravery. David Kessler kind of has a similar sentiment where he's like, your grief will be there when you are ready. And I think a lot of people are really afraid of that tidal wave. And I totally agree with you. You can't outrun it. Like it's going to be there. But also I think there's times where it's like, I am under so much stress. I don't have the ability to, I'm going to say properly grieve, but to grieve in the way that I need to. And so I think there is some possibility of like, this won't consume you. And when you are ready, it will be there. But it's going to hurt like hell.
And I think there's like, I think we often think about the image of like putting in a box and like on a shelf, like that being really negative, which if that's where it stays forever, that is negative, I'd say more often than not. But like there is value in compartmentalizing. Sometimes you just have to, right? Like especially as parents, right? I had a 1 and a 4-year-old when this all went down. Like I had to just kind of like, all right, kids, let's get up, let's do the things. And I just had to like put it somewhere else for a little bit, And so there's value in that, but also not avoiding it and making sure that you do eventually come back to it is important.
Yeah, I think that processing piece is important, right? I feel like so many people in that compartmentalization of it tend to find other vices to numb it out because they don't want to process. Like, are there tools that you guys have learned of like, this is going to hurt like hell, but I need to go through this valley to like actually sort through those emotions and hopefully get to the other side? Again, like knowing that there's always going to be this void in my life, but like to be able to not have that weight on you as much anymore.
I can like palpably feel myself like, and I did this morning. I like needed to get outside and go for a walk, like get outside, feel the wind. Ever since my sister passed, I feel like I feel her in the wind. Like that's where I know you said like it's a song or there's something like I was visiting my folks this weekend and that always brings, my sister back up and just lots of stuff. So this morning I was like, I just need to move my body. I need to feel the wind in my face. I live close to the lake. Like that's the kind of thing that I need is just like getting outside, moving, breathing, touching nature. I mean, and to be honest, sometimes, I have kind of numbed out in ways and tried to avoid, but like when I really know that, that's not going to work. I need to get myself to a place where I'm doing the things that feel good. It's not a solution, but it's like a salve.
I love that invitation of do things that feel good. I think for me, again, like it's changed so much over the years. I think I used to be a very avid journaler. And before my dad died, I would journal all the time. And when he passed, there was something really painful about putting pen to paper and like the ink and to hold it and have this document that like held, I don't know, it felt very Harry Potter-ish. But I turned to the internet and I blogged about it for strangers to read for 8 years. And I think, again, that's the basis of my book, but there was something really cathartic about like, I don't have to hold this in my house. I have a space to put it. I can process and publish, and I don't know if people are reading it. And I think, of course, there's the regular kind of self-care, like move your body, things that would help me. I did a lot of dance classes where it was like kind of free interpretive dance for adults. And it was just like, I'm going to start crying in this public dance class and exercise like kickboxing. And no one knows why you're really excited to get all that out. But I do think there's something about, for me, this public-private exchange, because I think grief is really lonely as well. And I really wished there were more people who could sit with me in it. And I found that was really hard for people my age. People were, going to grad school and getting married. And I don't know, I felt very pariah-ish. And so I think the anonymity of like being in a space with people and I could do an activity, but they didn't know why I was crying in dance class. I think that felt freeing to me.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what you're saying about it feels really lonely. And that's, I kind of turn the same way. Like I've not ever been a journaler, and to write my thoughts out, it's like almost too confronting if it's just like me writing by myself. Like, ooh, I don't know, that overwhelms me. But I turned to like my social media and stuff and wrote about my sister and like what was going on. And I found that to be super cathartic because my every day, my every thought, especially in the earlier days, was like about her. And if I'm not sharing that, then I'm not being authentic, like I needed to be talking about what was happening in my life and like what messages and what I was learning from this whole experience. And I found by and large, I received more support and positive feedback from that. Whereas I think a lot of times it's kind of that in the beginning and then you shut the book and you don't talk about your person anymore. And that is not me. I'm like still professing my love to my sister and like missing her, publicly all the time and talk about her regularly. It just feels like that's the only way to be like, remember, like she was here and she still is because she's part of my life. And yeah, it makes me personally feel a lot less lonely in it.
Have you guys, you guys all have kids, so have you guys seen the movie Coco?
Yeah.
So Coco is about the Day of the Dead and about like how the people have, your family has your picture up on the credenza and then they come back on this day and the spirits can cross over and all this stuff, right? So I watched that movie. I don't know when it came out, but I remember watching that movie like after my dad had died. Like there's the part of the movie where the guy like who is in the spirit world, nobody remembers him anymore. And so he ceases to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm going to have to take a lap. Like,
yeah.
The kids are all like, everything's orange and flowers and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, like my relationship with my dad was very complicated, but I was like, he still existed.
Yeah.
And you have to like, you share the stories and how these things go. And so like, I think before I had a chance to meet both of you, like the writing that you guys have done and things like that, I went through a lot of it and was like, yes, like this for sure, this for sure, for sure, for sure. And I'm so excited that you have put this all into a book because I think there is so much. You've both done such a wonderful thing for people that you'll never meet, for them to be able to say, on their worst day, they find this pocket of the internet where they can feel like they feel seen or they feel like they don't feel alone because our world moves so quickly that people don't give themselves the time to slow down and then the world just kind of scoops you up and keeps on going. But that when you find spaces where people say, this happened to me, this like whether it's immediate, whether it's long and drawn out, however the process of losing someone goes, but that you have a space where you feel like you are not the only one. So I want to make sure that we like call that out because there is that vulnerability in both of you putting that piece out there, but you don't always get back in forms of like views or likes or however people can try and interact back with you. That like you guys have had an impact on people beyond what you'll probably ever know, or something gets shared or something like that. So I just definitely want to make sure that we put a big old flag and sparklers in that because it's really incredible to do that, to turn around and say, I don't want to hold this in my head. I don't want to hold this in my nightstand, but I want it to be out into this in the world where other people can have it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I love that you brought up the Dia de los Muertos tradition. My boys go to a dual language school. So in the first year, right after my sister died, my son started kindergarten like a couple months after. And then October comes and there's always an ofrenda. That's what the name of the altar.
Yes.
So at the school, and that was a really impactful thing for me to take her picture there with the boys and talk about how we like remember her. And just yesterday, actually, in my corner over in my room here, I've got our ofrenda set up, and I'm going to pick up the picture from Walgreens today. So it's very interesting that that came up. So that tradition of like honoring and bringing up and talking about and keeping present is something that has been really important in our family. And we are not Mexican. We have really no tie to that. But I'm like, this is a really lovely tradition. And I think that it's something that we can bring into our families, traditions that we do each year.
Mm-hmm. I love that there are so many different ways culturally that people deal with grief and loss. And I think that that's, I guess, one of the beauties of living in a world that is so tightly connected and everything is not that far away anymore. Like I went to my first Jewish funeral last year, January. No, January. It wasn't even last year. It was in January. And I had never been to one before. And I'd been to like, Catholic funeral and all other, non-denominational, whatever, everything. Unfortunately, like I don't want to have a whole lot of funeral experience, but such is life. I remember like the way that they spoke about people not being here anymore. And that it was just so very much like, this is a part of our life, is that we live our life and then we are no longer living our life, and the traditions that they have around this and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I like this because it feels like we're not trying to hide. We're not trying to like gloss it over. We're not like, this is sad and this is terrible and we are holding the space for it. And then these are all the traditions that we're going to do. And so it's that piece. Like we have pictures of people that we've lost up in the house, and we talk about them, and we have, go to all of these different kind of opportunities and work that in. I think it's cool. I think it's cool that we can just blend in all the other cultures in a way that helps us.
Yeah, I think that's why it spoke to me so much, because it's like a celebration, and it's like an opportunity to think about and talk about the person, which has been so important to me. So I'm like, heck yeah, that's going to be part of what we do every year. And it's been great. And it's also, like I said, if my kids were little, one of them remembers my sister, one of them doesn't. But like, I feel like he has this relationship with her and her memory because of me really intentionally talking about her and, helping her to be part of their lives, even though she's not here. And so that's personally how I feel like I need to show up for them, and also to keep my sister alive.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dovetail, the app that's changing the way families navigate caregiving. If you're juggling your kids' schedules, checking in on your parents, and trying to manage your own needs, Dovetail is made for you. I built Dovetail as a clinician and caregiver who saw firsthand how overwhelming this role can be and how much lighter it feels when the care is shared. Download Dovetail now on iOS, Google Play, coming soon. How do you, Katie, because I remember you and I had talked about this before, but because you said you didn't have kids when your dad passed, like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think I'm figuring it out.
Yeah.
I remember when my daughter was born, I was very adamant that I bring a picture of my dad to the hospital. So there's a picture in her nursery or her bedroom of him holding me as a baby. And I brought it, when I was giving birth. And I remember turning it face down for the less glamorous parts, like, you don't need to see
Don't
this.
Look, yeah.
Yeah. But I was very intentional about introducing her to him like right away. And it's interesting with this second baby coming soon. I've been asking, like, do I want to do the same thing? Do I get her own copy of the picture? Like, what do I do for this one? And we talk about Papa Roy, and she, I have his picture up. This quilt actually is made out of his clothes. So it's a thing that I use and talk about. And, we have a picture book of him. But I remember I found an old video of my dad dancing, or he's jumping on a trampoline with my cousins. And my mom had texted it to me. And I was watching it and weeping because like I hadn't heard his laugh in such a long time. And she came up and wanted to see the video. And she could recognize him and know who he was. But I could see in her kind of this dissonance of like, I know who that is, but I don't know who that is. And it was just so painful for me. I mean, even still talking about it, to have to navigate that gap. And I think that's more of my stuff, and I'm really trying to work through what's my pain in this and what's hers, because it's not really that painful for her yet. I mean, she's 3, but I wrote in the book too, I dread the day when she says my grandpa died before I was born. Like, it's just true. But that's going to be painful to hear. And so I think there's, different ways you integrate. And going back to that idea of like tradition and ritual, I remember the first few years being like, is it a tradition if you've only done it twice? Like, how do you honor them year after year? And some years it feels really crappy and some years it doesn't. And lately, like, I've actually felt I've been introducing her more when I like cook her breakfast. Like, my dad would always make a toast with cream cheese and jelly. And like, I would make that for Nora in the mornings, and I'm like eating at the counter, trying to get her out of the house. And she hates it, and I just wish, that I could like tell my dad, like, I remember the toast mornings. I get it now. Like, like he would spill on his white shirt and he'd get so mad at us. And just, I think so I swim in his memory a lot, and I choose when do I introduce her to like, that was something that was important to him. And I'm sure it's going to change and grow as she grows too. But I think one of my biggest challenges, since she didn't really have a relationship with him, is what's my pain in this and what's her pain or her loss. Because I don't know. And I'll be curious like what she asks about. And she's at my mom's house quite a bit, and there's pictures of my dad everywhere at my mom's house. So it's not like we're hiding him. And I'm actually very aligned with you guys. I think it's important to keep the stories. It's important to bring it up. But there's this little book, I'll have to look up the author, but it's called I Never Met My Grandpa. And when my daughter was born, someone gave it to me, and it was a griefy friend. But I just remember that, like, sitting with her and weeping as an infant, reading this picture book. And I think, again, totally my pain there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's something I have to carry. But I want to learn from you. How are you navigating the storytelling with young children and walking that path? Because I'm sure the questions are coming.
Yes. And I also, listening to you explain that, I actually, outside of my sister, was in the position of your daughter. So my grandfather died very suddenly when I was like one, not even one, I was like 10 months old. So I never got a chance to meet him, and my older sister did. But there was like this like grief of absence my whole life, because everyone talked about how great he was. And I always wondered, like, did he love me like as much as he loved my sister? So I don't know what kind of advice I have, but I think my family didn't talk about him much, other than to just be like, he was great, and I was just always like, but I didn't get to know him, like how did I like explain how he loved me? Like, that's how I wanted to know, like, how did I exist for him, and or I think in your case, your daughter wasn't here yet, but like, how would he have been, So that's interesting to hear that from like this different generation. But yes, my kids, especially my little one, who he was maybe could he even talk when he met my sister once when he was like 6 months old, right? So like not really, but he asks me super profound questions. Like, we called my sister, her name is Brienne, and we called her Aunt Brizo. And he'll be like, is Brizo in Spirit Land? And like, okay, 3 year, like, well, this was like when he was like 3, like, okay, like, let's strap in. We gotta, how am I going to respond to this kid, But it's given a really, really good opportunity to talk about, well, what do we think? And just the other day, he's almost 9 years old, said something about like heaven and hell. He heard about that idea. And I was like, yeah, some people think that, but that's not really what I think. And so we have this idea of the spirit land and like, is Brizo there? We just kind of like talk about our ideas, because I'm like, you know what? Nobody really knows, but I think that she lives in my heart. I just try to kind of explain to them in ways that I make sense of it, but also am very transparent that I don't know and nobody does. So we have the opportunity to decide what we want to believe. But yeah, it's a wild trip. Those little kids will like force you to really consider like what you think and like, but yeah, my younger one, he's actually turning 6 in a few days. He will just sometimes all of a sudden be like, yeah, but Brizo's dead. And I'm just like, it like hurts. Like the just the like slam of it. And I'm not going to be like, don't say that. I'm just like, yeah, she is. And just trying to be like, yeah, that's where he's at with it right now, is just, he's processing it in some way, but trying not to let my feelings about like, oh, you just said it so like abruptly. I hate that. I'm not going to show that to him. Right. Like, I'm like, okay, that is a fact. She did die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Have you guys had to navigate in school the family tree assignment?
Oh my God. I feared that as a child. I hate the family tree.
The family tree assignment is a real like kick in the teeth. Just, I think in general, first of all, getting the pictures printed and getting the assignment there is like terrible.
Yeah.
So you're telling me I'm still going to have to do that? I hate. Oh no.
I actually, so like I'm back in school. I'm an occupational therapist like Ashley, but haven't really found my niche, whatever. So I'm back in school. I'm like, it's funny. I listened to our first conversation. I was just about to start. I'm getting another master's degree in mental health counseling. So that was all very like, this whole experience of losing my sister is what kind of moved me in that direction. But we had to do a genogram for school. And basically that's a family tree thing, and like discuss the different like relationships and the complexities of the relationships. That was I want to swear, I won't, but mind F. Like, I don't want to write this down. So like thinking about having to help my kids through that is, different. But yeah, having to sit down with that, like for myself and like describe the different complexities of relationships and all of that, and see my sister like X'd out to indicate that she's gone was terrible. It's a terrible feeling.
It's that like my kids, the three of my kids are in the same school, and they have this community buddy program. So like a senior in the community will come in and they get paired up and stuff. And so like their intro assignment is to do the family tree. And like, yeah, I get where we're starting. However, I'm like, can we make it more of a bush instead of a tree? Because a lot of people have different people in their life that mean very important things to them, and they might fulfill something that's typically in another role, and the person that's in that role is not in that role, whatever. Anyways, I was like, I had a whole like different interpretation of it.
Yeah.
But whatever, my kids come home and they're like, I need all of these pictures. And I'm like, okay. And then I think to myself, there's going to be 3 senior citizens at my kids' school who go in because we talk about everything, right? Who are going to go in and be like, yes, my grandpa's dead. He killed himself. And then I'm going to have these 3 elderly people that like completely like scramble, and they're going to the principal and they're going to think that they have to like help my kids, like whatever. But they're very much like, yeah, no, that's what happened. Not that they don't have any feelings, but they're just like, that's the way.
I love that. That's like cultural rebellion.
Yeah.
Quiet resistance.
Yeah.
And you're changing the narrative. I mean, it's so important. Let's stop making assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's like, like there's ways to talk to children about most things. We can make it appropriate for wherever they're at. But what I don't think is okay is to lie and to hide things.
Right. Yeah.
We got to make it just appropriate for where they're at. And then that messaging can evolve over time as they grow up and become more mature and able to take on more. But I'm never one for lying and just and like putting a different, because like how unsettling is it for them one day when they realize, oh, that story wasn't actually true. Like that feels like, well, what else wasn't true?
Exactly. We want things to be so tidy, and like black and white when it's not. And so you just have to meet them where they are and have those conversations.
Yeah, that was that was one of those things where it was like I had to go and have a talk like with the principal and the teachers to be like, listen, this is coming down the pipe. They're cool with it. I'm cool with it. I just don't want to scare
the seniors because they weren't talking about stuff like that openly back in the day. That's for sure.
Empowered parenting. You're like, I love it. That's great.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right. But I think, that's like for sure. Like, I think that was like my part with the Christmas piece is like, I know that I'm not like, this isn't like the goldfish went over the rainbow. This is like, this happened, was here, not here. It's terrible. How do we navigate this? What does this all look like? And I think that's something that like when our own parenting meets the masses and then your kids run into like other people that are like, oh, well, were they sick? Or, oh, well, that like don't really know. And then you empower your kids to be like, no, this is exactly what happened. Not exactly, but like, this is the situation that I'm in. And this is who I can talk to about this. But like you guys are saying, like, definitely don't ever want to be the person that like someone else comes along and bursts the bubble. Like I want the foundation, not the bubble.
Yes.
For them to go on into the world.
I want my kids to always to be able to trust me and to believe what I'm telling them. Even if it's tough, I want the correct messaging or that, to come from me, not from someone else.
Yeah. I think this comes full circle to just giving words to it, right? And acknowledging the language, our own language to empower our kids, right? And then empower other people. Because if it's not coming from us and how we see it, then other people are going to look in and give their own opinion or want to give that language to our kids, to try to help them when it should be coming from us.
The blanks will be filled in one way or the other. So we might as well fill them in.
Yeah.
I had this is not a grief discussion. topic. This is not a component of grief, but I remember when my oldest was getting older and there was conversations that were happening about like sex at school. And I remember being like, we're going to do this. We've talked about this like all the way up through high OT, but I was like, we're going to talk about mechanically and emotionally and all this stuff. And like you layer it all in. But I remember being like, I don't ever want any of my kids to find out based on someone else. Like someone's older sibling tells them. And so then they disseminate that information. That is like the most clear and present example of things that I would feel like I really kicked the ball too far down the road with. And I think grief is along the same lines of like heavy topic. You're talking about framing someone's view about how they interact with the world and what's going on in the world and all of those pieces. You want to make sure that you have that foundation in place.
And I think that's what you guys have both been doing, right? With your work, it's like giving that language to something that is so personal and so heavy that people don't usually want to talk about it either. But to provide those words and maybe that guidance is just so helpful in these spaces. Because we don't know what we're doing with grief, and it can be so lonely.
So, Katie, what made you decide to move from blog to book?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey. I started the blog in 2014. I was newly engaged and my grandpa had just died. And the world has changed so much in those 12 years. And I worked with a developmental editor because I had, 10 years of blog content to sort through and try to make sense of. And I went back and forth and was like, is this a memoir? Is this essays? What is this? But I think my through line was I just really believe that we need help looking for joy and we need help looking for hope. And that doesn't mean we dismiss our pain. And I've always wanted to publish a book. I've been a writer since like 5th grade. And so I think some of it too is just purely the desire to put bookends on it and to have a cover and something to hold. And with the help of a lot of developmental editors and people who have coached me, they really were encouraging me. They kept saying the meat of what this blog is a grief book. It's not a how-to guide. There's a lot of how-to guides out there. It's not a 6 steps to recovery. And so what I've been saying is it's an invitation to grieve differently. And Hope Edelman has a book called The After Grief that actually really inspired kind of my trajectory. But she looks at the story arc, kind of those old-fashioned story arcs and how we tell our story and how it changes as it grows and as we grow. And when I sat down, even a month ago, I got my text file and I read the whole thing cover to cover. And it was very, very profound for me to sit and look at myself in the essays at the beginning. And the book ends with the birth of my daughter, which again was almost 3 years ago. And so how much have I changed even since that ending? And I think, so there's permission to grow and change and to hold our stories as we grow and change. And I think, again, our world is going through a lot. It was interesting. My editor too said, let's take out the COVID stuff. And part of me kind of resisted that. But that was a choice that we made a lot of the essays that I had written during like 2020, 2021. But I do think the world is collectively grieving right now, and we don't have the words or the language for it. And so we might not be wearing masks, but the tentacles are very present for many, many people. So I've lost track of your original question in my rambling. But I think for me, the North Star is really how do we care for ourselves and be tender, like Abby said, have more grace for this really hard process. And there's just an element of humanity too. Like I remember thinking with some of my younger friends, like especially those who didn't get it, like in my worst times, I'd be like, just you wait, like you know, out of my own pain, I'd be like, it's coming for all of us. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, I was just young when it happened to me. And then I can also relate to that idea of like a social network. Strangers that I've met on Instagram have become more of my grief cheerleaders than some of my closer friends. And that's not to dismiss my closer friends, but I think it's just to say when you meet someone who can say me too, there's some power there.
Yeah.
So I want to be one of those people that is a Me Too person instead of like, oh, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely are creating. I wonder about, like you had said before or in the beginning, when you were going to put pen to paper, it felt it felt like too raw, too in the moment, in that space. But like having a chance to look back at this collection of how you moved through it, do you feel differently about it now that it's actually on paper and in front of you?
That's a really good question. I can tell that I'm actually a little bit afraid of it. It feels totally vulnerable. And this is like a newbie author mistake, but I made this mistake this last week. So I didn't order my author copies in time yet. So I actually haven't received a copy that I can hold. It's in the mail. But I have friends, like you can buy it on Amazon. My neighbor got it in 2 days, So, and I'm just being a stick in the mud. Like I could pay full price and get an Amazon copy, but I don't want to pay full price. So hopefully the actual copy that I can hold will be here this week. So if you're going to publish a book, order your author copies early. That was a self-publishing faux pas. But I do think in the preface, I write a lot about how you have to give yourself grace and allow it to change. And so I think there's a super vulnerability in being like, here's my story. Will you buy it, please? And for local people, that's like even more terrifying. Like people might see my name in a bookstore versus just buy it on Amazon. So I'm working on like owning it and, being in that big, beautiful space and being proud of it, because I think there is a ton of vulnerability just to put your creative work out there, no matter what you're doing, whether you're telling your story on a podcast or creating a social media post. But mostly I'm proud. I think it's like a hard-earned journey, and I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Yeah, it's a really cool way to really bookend that, right? Is a whole decade.
Well, when you talk about like telling your story for your kids, I think that has been motivating for me too. Like this is a chapter of my life that someday they may pick up. Maybe they won't ever read it. But I think in terms of family legacy or story, like it is another way to keep him alive and keep that version of my experience alive. And that was important to me.
Yeah. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. And I just love that, like, it's not memoir in the terms of like, this is me and this is my story, but that you're also, again, creating the space alongside of the story to invite people to have more grace with themselves, to slow down, to accept those spaces. Like you're still holding the space alongside walking through it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read it because I've read your blog and your blog is phenomenal.
Thanks.
And so I cannot wait to read it.
Thanks. You might get a copy before I do.
And I mean, Abby too, like you had alluded to, your experience of moving through this experience, life-changing, all of that led to like, who am I and what do I want to do for a career?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a whole...
Nothing like figuring it out at
you shook
40
the snow globe.
Yep. Nothing, shakes that snow globe up more than like major tragedy in the middle of your life,
Yeah. But how do you feel like... So now it's that piece of like, if that didn't happen, that's a terribly shitty way to start a question, anything to do with that. But like... Yeah. Do you feel like in light of what happened and the pivot that you made and all of that stuff, that you're in a space that's more aligned
100%.
than you would have been?
Yes.
Very cool.
100%. And I've said that often. There's like, beauty to be found in this otherwise horrible tragedy. I mean, the greatest tragedy of my life. I can't tell you how much my sister meant to me. And for her to be gone is just still shocking. But the gift that the whole process has given me is some real clarity on how I want to live the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm turning 43 in a few weeks, and my sister died 20 days after she turned 43. And I'm like, all right, I'm on the path to live a more authentic life in those years that he didn't get. And that I'm just, by like luck of the draw, am the one that gets to keep living. So I might as well do do what feels the most authentic and the most aligned with my values. And that's what I'm doing. And I would not be doing this if I had not lost my sister. I'd still just be like, that's fine. I'm doing. But now, like, forget that. Like, life is short. I got no time. There's not enough time in the day. I got to get to doing what.
I'm not writing any more progress notes.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I probably will. They'll just be
never
different.
again.
Yeah. I've thought so many times about that kind of like sliding doors concept. I mean, even this morning I woke up and I said, I wouldn't be doing this today if he were still here. And
Yeah.
And, you can play what if for as long as you want to, but I do think there's a bittersweetness to it of like, okay, I was just thinking, I said to my husband, today is a make lemonade out of lemons day. Maybe I need to like get some lemonade to celebrate because I can't drink anything right now. But I can really relate to the like, okay, now what kind of space? And it took a long time to even want to like do anything about it. And I know David Kessler's like newest stage of grief is making meaning, and I haven't actually read that book yet, but I think we have choices in how we carry on, and not that you need, it's plenty fine if people don't want to go write a book or make a social change or change careers. Like, it's fine to just carry your story as well. But I do think there's a bittersweet privilege and pain in like, well, shoot, I guess I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Because I feel called to it.
Yeah.
And so I just see you in that space of like, well, nope, that doesn't fit anymore. And how do we outgrow our old selves? And I think that's actually been one of the really painful parts of these 10 years is like, I've shed a lot of skin.
Yeah.
And some people get it and some people don't. But who wants to be stuck in that same skin as 10 years ago? So there's growth to be found.
Yeah. I feel like that growth story is like a whole other episode.
Yeah.
I would love to dive into that too. Like, what does growth look like?
And the whole like grief thing, like it's like the most devastating thing, like right next to like some of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Like,
right.
And the most profound understanding of how I want to live my life and be present with my, like it just completely changed my life for the better. But would I do anything to have my sister back? Yes, I would. But I also can see where it's a hard thing, but benefited me in some ways, right? Like that's just like a crazy, like how do you juggle both of those things?
You can't,
You can't. It's crazy. But it just is what it is. And I'm going to take the good with the unfortunate, terribly bad,
Yeah. And I think that it's such a exfoliation of shoulds. It's that
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Thank you. But it's that idea of like, I don't have to do this anymore. It's like when the world stops and you realize like how much of it was just you being in the commuter lane, right? It's like how much of what I did between the hours of like 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. were things that I wanted to do or things that I felt like I needed to do or I was supposed to do. And I think that that's one of those moments of clarity pieces that I also think comes with motherhood. My husband always joked that every time I was pregnant, I would start like cleaning out things in the house because I was like, we don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. And he was like, I mean, this is kind of great because you have all these things to keep and stuff like that. But I was like, nesting for me was like, bye-bye, all this. And I feel like with grief that in my own process my assumption is that there's that like, let's get real, let's get down to the brass tacks of what we need to keep and what we don't need to keep. And like, I'm not going to wait for this thing to happen. I'm not going to wait to like go out and like do this, like write the book, do the line of work that I want to do, tell people how I really feel, good, bad, or otherwise, all of that, which is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes me most nervous about having this book too, is like, I want to bask in this moment, but it does feel complete. And it's like now it's turning to a whole new chapter of what's next. And I don't need to rush and fill that space. I think I've learned to let that be calm, but there is sort of a culmination to it. And then, tomorrow I'll do another day. But I think there's something worth celebrating of like, no, I'm not that same person that I was on page 1 of this book, and that's okay. That's the risk of telling your story publicly too. People want you to stay in a box, or they want you to stay in an emotion. So I'm a little nervous about that. But I love the purging idea.
Yeah. You're showing people how you evolve, which is incredible.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, is that evolution, right? Like, we're not meant to stay the same. And that's part of that growth. It's like through that process, you've evolved. And that's exciting, even if it's totally scary, because you're shedding so many layers.
When I think, too, we focus a lot on evolution as a good thing, like in terms of life milestones, right? Like we focus on getting married, buying a house, all of those things that are like the happy milestones. But there are milestones in our life that are sad and hard.
Yeah.
And we don't focus on those because nobody likes to live in that space.
Yeah.
But again, you have to.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
I know. This is great.
It's like so fun. I mean, it's not fun to talk about grief, but it's just like,
I like it. Bring it on.
I was going to say, clearly, like, we're here for it, like, we're all about it.
We showed up. We're doing. I do want to say, like, as always, I really appreciate that you guys have both shown up in the way that you have to really be a beacon for other people, and to really, people, especially in those darker things, they need lighthouses. And so offering story and offering, experience and whatever it is that you guys are comfortable with will undoubtedly create beacons for other people to follow along. And so thank you. Thank you for coming. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah. Thanks for hosting.
Great to meet you guys.
And as always, I think if there's anybody out there that is going through this piece, the message from you guys, from all of us, is like, do not do this alone.
Yeah.
You have to find a connection. You have to find a person. You have to find a something to help you with this, because we do not want to just say, rip the top off the grief conversation and say like, yeah, it's all terrible and wonderful. Like the moving forward piece, have support, whatever that might look like, so that you are not doing this alone, that you are not feeling like you're completely untethered out in the wind, because if you don't, that's how it feels, and it's terrible, and it's not necessary, because there are people out there that care and that want to help. So want to also put that out there at the end.
Yeah, sure. Know that you're not alone. The cycle will
exactly
cycle through. I think the valley place feels very lonely, but you won't be in the valley forever.
Yeah, find some friends. I'm going to put in all of the information on where to find your book, Katie, and where to find you guys. And thank you so much for coming back. And thank you for being here and talking about this. Because even if it's yesterday, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, it's still a heavy topic. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.